It's the Let's Talk Polyamory podcast, where we talk about all things consensual non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships, swinging, and how you can have secure and sexy relationships, no matter how you do them. Now here's your hosts, Tara and Andre.
Whoa, that was the best content ever. I said the most wonderful things. You asked the best questions. We all said everything.
Oh, no.
Hello, and welcome
again.
to. Is this a comedy show? This is a comedy show. Well, sex should be fun.
Okay, we'll start once again. That's my bad. I put us in the stream and forgot to unmute us. So.
That's okay. We're here. We're queer. We're live. We've been going through the sexabet, as we call it, the alphabet of sexual terms. Not all of them. There's so many out there. But we're going from A to Z, talking about things of interest to you and me. We're talking about things.
Oh, that rhymed.
Thank you for noticing. Yeah, talking about things as it relates to our feelings, our thoughts, our sexuality, our open relating, possibly closed relating, whatever it might be.
Polyamory,
yeah,
etc. I think we did polls for the letter E and I think C.
It sounds like Sesame Street. Brought to you by the letters E and M and C. EMC square.
Right. And today is brought to you by the letter F. And there's so many awesome F words.
Fun.
Fun F words.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, you stole my joke that was in the notes. That's okay.
It'll come back up.
There were so many great choices that we couldn't decide. So we kind of like, we've started a lexicon and we had a lot of fun like with the F words because there was a lot in there. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of them and then stay through to the end because we have a little bit of a special announcement / opportunity.
Wow, okay, I'll stay there. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's interesting you say that there's so many Fs and we should not have to pick, but isn't that the spirit of who we are? Not wanting to have to pick one particular flavor as our favorite and then never taste those other ones again. We want many tennis playing participants. Flavors, yes.
Flavors
The flavor.
And favorite. Use 2 F words in that sentence. That's pretty amazing. Is that intentional?
Fantastic.
All right. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
This is going to be fun.
Fun.
See, there, I did it there. So let's just jump in. These are in no particular order, but yeah. So there's
no order, not alphabetical or otherwise.
Well, they're all Fs, but they're not in a particular order.
All right.
I mean, I kept one special one for the end, but actually the least fun of the F words to the end.
Least fun.
But it's still a good one, so
I'm
that's
curious.
why you want to stay to the end.
Okay.
It's the one word I think that everybody who's probably watching this or that's in our group has in common.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what about the F word?
The F word.
Yeah, the F word, known as the F word.
The F word.
Yeah.
Yes. Fuck.
Yeah.
Can you say that on Facebook?
You just did.
I did.
What about it? It's the most incredible word, right? I mean, it has so many uses. It's a pronoun, an adjective, a qualifier, an adverb. It goes on and on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
It's said as a compliment. I can make a compliment.
Like fuckable?
Oh, yeah. And like fuckalicious and all
delicious
those.
as fuck.
Right.
AF.
All these
for sure.
And then it can also be the most venomous word, right?
Yeah.
You motherfucker. It's like whatever it is. It's just incredible.
Fuck off.
But it's also interesting to see how once upon a time it was kind of like underneath everything, not really that big a deal. And then it became very potent and considered quite taboo. And it was very gauche if you should use it. And now, your mother and the president use it.
Well, your mother.
Okay, not my mother.
My mother doesn't, but if I say it, she doesn't flinch as much as she used to.
Scandalous. Yeah.
It's
anyway,
like,
so
fuck, like if you hurt yourself or something like that. Yeah, we do use it a lot.
Have you never heard your mother say fuck? Do your parents fuck? What the fuck? Come on, seriously.
Yeah. So that was a good. So fuck. That's always a good word.
Fuck is great.
Here
we go.
Fucking.
Yeah, I like fucking too. Fucking
that one is one of the most adaptable words. People do use it for a lot of different things.
And you might not be surprised to know that they use it in other languages as well, right?
Do they?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Like exactly the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fuck is such a universal word. You find it in, it's cross-cultural, social, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So awesome. Fuck that. Let's get on with it.
Fuck that word. Okay. The 4 Fs. So there's different versions of this. I think it's more of the 4 Fs have been used more of a derogatory is not the right word. It's used to
Well, in a way, I guess.
I guess it is.
Because from what I grew up with it in high school, for example, the 4 F's were find them, feel them, fuck them, forget them. Cast somebody aside with the forget them part, right?
Find them, feel them, fuck them, and forget them.
Right. But what did Mae West say of it?
Oh, Mae West, 1930s. She said, never let a man, I can't remember the actual words of the song. It's like, find him, fool him, forget him. So I think that was in retaliation of the find them, feel them, fuck them, forget them. Find him, fool him, forget him. Do you know what song it is from?
No, I don't. Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Oh, and you know it's from a song?
I think so. Because, I started writing Never Let a Man, and I feel like that was the beginning of Never Let a Man Take Advantage of You, I think. Or maybe it was just what she said. Maybe it wasn't in a song.
Interesting. So the 4 F's. All right. And we got 3 of them anyway.
Yeah.
And then what else?
Well, yours was 4. Find them, feed them, feel whatever.
No, I wasn't going to feed them.
Just don't feed them.
Fuck them, forget them.
Is that your cardinal rule? Don't feed them?
I don't do many first dates at dinner. Some people say, "Oh yeah, we should meet for dinner as a first date." If I've not met them, first dates, if I've not met them before, and it's probably my own shtick, but maybe our listeners could tell us how they feel about it as well. But so much of it is about, I guess, chemistry and stuff, and you might work out well in text messages and maybe even a video chat on the phone before meeting. But then when you get there, for me, it feels like there's this great commitment in a way that we're going to have dinner and it probably goes well, easy enough. I mean, so what, it's only dinner, but it seems like it's a kind of large commitment. If I've never met the person before, I might want to meet them for a more casual introduction first. If there's a vibe, then sure, let's go for dinner. Let's go for dessert even. But if it is, but it's interesting because I might have sex on the first date, but eating on the first date is kind of my threshold. What's with that? Also,
you have to figure out who pays the bill and all that stuff, and then it's more expensive, right? Than if you just have drinks or coffee. What did we do for our first date, Andre? Do you remember?
Our first date, we went for a coffee.
Yes, and then stood in the corner for a very long time, holding hands. But our second date, we ate. And our third date, we ate. But anyway, okay. Foursome. That was just put in there for fun because what's more fun than foursomes?
Fivesomes, sixsomes? No.
Fivesomes, moresomes?
They're just as fun. I don't know more.
Yeah, not more.
But they're a lot of fun.
Foursomes are fun.
Foursomes should be definitely mentioned. So what is a foursome? When I think about it, I think generally it's like one couple coming together with another couple.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be.
No. What else could it be?
No.
A threesome with picking up somebody? A bunch of singles coming together as a foursome?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Randomly meeting people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, foursome is a polycule foursome. I mean, it can be.
That's a good question.
If there's 4 people.
But for foursome, for me, so there's the connection together when we make a foursome. Or is it the play aspect of it that we're in a foursome that's playing? Like, I mean, we might be just 4 people hanging out. So when we go into something, right?
Yeah. I think it's more associated with play. But I wanted to put it in there because I wanted to say that it's hard to have 4 people, like any more than even 2 people. It's hard to connect and figure out if you get along, but 4 people is even more difficult. And I think sometimes, just from talking to some clients, sometimes people get in situations where if it's 2 couples, for example, where there may be one or the other don't get along or don't necessarily have that attraction, and that can cause big issues because then if you're the single one that's not the one that's feeling it, then you feel the one that's responsible for the entire thing, right? If it's felt that the other couple wants to be also with a couple. Anyways,
that's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. If everybody's going to mesh with each other, but on that spirit, I find that, and what I hear from other people is that sometimes in threesomes there can be great potential for power imbalance that 2 people might really connect and it leaves one person feeling out. Whereas with the foursome, not guaranteed, but often it's more of a balanced situation. So those 2 are together and we're together and kind of mix it up that way. Yeah.
I mean, it's even better when everyone's kind of fluid because sometimes you can have if it's very
fluid. Another
fluid.
F word.
Oh, another F word. We missed that one.
No, we got it.
We got it. No, but if it's people that mostly identify as heterosexual straight, then there can still be a bit of a power dynamic if you're waiting or that sort of thing. There's that swapping thing. I like when it's all mixed up. That's my preference.
When you're sexually fluid, it does open up the variables because if you have one partner who is rather fluid and the other partner who is more in their one position, then you're not going to have those chances for interaction as much, right? So when it's the other way, it can just be like recycling. You can just mix everything together. It can be commingled.
Someone's saying, good recovery on remembering the first date. He remembers the first date. He's just being silly because we always joke about that first date.
Dodged it. It was so good. I did actually forget.
You did not. Do you remember the second date, though?
Yeah, the second
date.
The
in-between date.
The pizza.
Yeah.
That was very casual. That wasn't really a date.
That was an
in-between
in-between
very impromptu. But anyway.
Okay.
Forget it.
Forget it. Oh, J. Scott Long is saying, find them, fool them, forget them. Then okay, cool. Thanks for the reference.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
All right, so where were we? Foursomes, right? Moving on from foursomes.
We had fornicate and fuck. We kind of talked about fuck. But is fornication the same as fucking?
Technically, I suppose it is, but I guess it depends on what you mean by fucking.
Right. If you mean fucking in the action.
PIV?
No.
But there's many, yeah.
No, not necessarily. But is fornicating necessarily PIV? That's penis and vagina for people who aren't familiar with that acronym.
Well, when I guess in my limited understanding of fornication, when I hear the word fornicate, it implies intercourse.
What about frolicking?
That's just going gaily about, which was fun.
Another F word. Okay.
Then fairy. Like a fairy. I was like a fairy running down the street, frolicking through the woods.
Oh, that's reminding me of this weekend on the beach and seeing all those monarch butterflies. I don't know why, because they're not fairies, but that was such a beautiful thing. I couldn't believe how many of them there were.
Fluttering their wings.
Fluttering and flying about. Okay, moving on. Okay, here's a big one. We have a little more discussion on this one. Fetish and fetishism. So this is interesting because we did look and we found all kinds of different definitions from like the more very general to very, like, I'd say a little bit more specific. The one from Urban Dictionary, which is super, super general, which was a sexual fixation, also an F word, that usually differs from those of the standard population. In other words, something, and it says sometimes totally unrelated to sex, that turns you on and that isn't enjoyed by the majority of people. I kind of hate that definition in so many ways.
The majority of people. So if it's not mainstream, that might in itself move it over to?
Well, according to Urban Dictionary, maybe. But I think that's a really general definition. I have a lot of problems with that.
All right, so right there, love Urban Dictionary, just like I love Wikipedia, but who are the authors of these, right? Is there, is it pure-based reviews and all that stuff? Like, no, it is not. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I don't know who specifically the author was, but...
Well, and where are they getting this majority of the people?
Right. But the point really is that what it's doing, whether it is you're agreeing with its the verbiage used or not, it is doing our best thing. And that is, it is creating a dialogue. We're talking about it. We're coming to an understanding. So I say fuck and you say fuck, but what's my understanding of your understanding of fuck? And is it the same? And we don't know until we start talking about it. And that's what all of this is about, right? Let's talk about it. Let's have dialogue. Let's communicate. Because when we communicate, we gather that data, and when we have that data, we become empowered. We have that information. We can make an informed choice as to what's going on. What do we want? What do we not want? I don't like your definition. It doesn't suit me. Or yeah, I subscribe to it fully. And boom, there we go. And we can find out where we relate, and we can open relate, and it's all great.
Well, and that's, I think maybe you said it, and I was like listening, but I was listening. But it gets into relationships as well, and how our definitions and what we're agreeing to and stuff. If we're not communicating, we might not have the same definition or understanding. Anyways, all right, more definitions. Yeah. Fetish is a sexual excitement in response to an object or body part that's not typically sexual. And in this case, they put such as shoes or feet. Right. And before you go on, I want to continue the other part because I think it's important because we're going to get into it. Many people with fetishes must have the object of their attraction at hand or be fantasizing about it alone or with a partner in order to become sexually aroused, get an erection, and have an orgasm. I think, so not typical parts that aren't typically sexual.
Right. Well, okay. So that's the idea, right? It's not typically for the majority of people, But ask the person who subscribes to that particular fetish, and they think it's completely typical. It is their jam, right? That is what they get off. And, what floats your boat, to them might seem rather perverse, like you like.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't understand what's wrong with the majority of the people in the world. They're, they haven't become woke yet. You want to be careful about the stigmatization or the marginalization of people, because you might not be expressing of it or appreciative of it.
Right.
And so to think that it's in any way kind of perverse, it becomes perverse in a sense because it is not the average, but in the act in itself may not necessarily be perverse or otherwise.
Yeah, but then who decides what's the average? Like, it might be stuff that's reported, but some stuff is underground for like a long period of time, and
Sure.
You don't even know, right? It's like the statistic about people who are non-monogamous. It's apparently 50%ish, which is people would find surprising because they think that monogamism is more popular. Monogamy. Monogamous. It's not even a word.
It is now.
But I think the idea with that definition and the differentiate from the other one is that you need it in order to be aroused and turned on. So, if you like seeing your partner's feet and you like rubbing their feet or experiencing them or seeing them in shoes of some sort, heels or really nice men's shoes, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need that to be aroused. So.
Yeah, it's interesting though. When does it become considered a fetish, right?
Exactly.
Like, when do we attach some kind of, I'll say, moral judgment that it should be in any way perverse? So what if, I have this thing for, we'll use the shoe example, and I either have to be holding them, be close to them, be able to see them, or close my eyes and fantasize about them. But what if my fantasy, what if my kink, my fetish is, some shirtless hunk with long hair who's like riding a horse? And I have to fantasize about that in order to get off. Would that be a fetish? I mean, I'm having to conjure up that fantasy in order to get off.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I still I'm stuck in the idea of what people consider as outside the norm.
Right.
And
So
who decides?
So as a sex positive therapist, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to normalize all of our sexuality. It is somewhere on the spectrum, right? It's not to say we are advocating for things that are illegal or in some ways immoral or hurting of others. We want it to be consensual, but that somewhere it falls in the spectrum of normal or human sexuality. Normal, forget about that word. So to say that it is fetishized, to say that it is in some ways a fetish because it is not consistent or immoral, kind of puts it in second place in a sense, right? Why should it be considered any other way than perfectly acceptable? And that's not to say that we're saying that fetishes are not acceptable, but when we say that it's a fetish because it's not held by the majority of people, does it then take on its own implications? Are we kind of saying, well, it's not so-called normal because it's not the average person who we're asking?
Right. And I think as long as everybody's consenting and enjoying and agreeing, you have your things that turn you on. I know a long time ago, my friend who does Airbnb, she had someone staying at her place and she was a sex worker and she used to do online sessions. And I remember her telling us that she has a client who she basically is on camera ripping up paper and that turned them on. And it's so interesting, which also leads to the idea about like sex work being very different and not just about what people consider as sex. So the other thing I thought would be good to mention too, because, I've heard this talked about as well, is racial fetishization. There are sometimes there's fetishes around a particular ethnic or cultural background. So racial fetishization, I can't say the word, of Asian women, for example, or persons of color. And one might say that it might be a preference, but sometimes these converge on being harmful and reinforce harmful stereotypes.
It's so interesting. As you're saying this, it occurs to me how narcissistic I am really in my orientation, and how, yes, if I were to be attracted to someone who's Asian, that I am going to consider perhaps to be my fetishization of this person, of this group. But I wonder, because I'm narcissistic, I think a bit always on my turn, what about on the other side? Do they see me as this apparently, white dude? And do they look at me as like, oh, I want to go get me a white dude? Like, do I become the object of a fetish?
I mean, it could be, right?
And I'm perfectly willing and able to do that, by the way, if anybody's interested. It's a little joke.
little joke. Yeah, but it can be a serious thing. Like sometimes people do feel threatened, and it does cause issues for them.
So what do you want to say about that?
I just wanted to recognize it. I just wanted to bring it up. I don't really have a lot to say about it other than speaking to it and, raising awareness that that's a thing.
Okay, so what if then a lot of Asian people want to hook up with some white dude because he's a white dude rather than one of their own? So what if we want to have this diversion or this different experience? Is it by implication in any way perverse or immoral or something that we should not do, or should we just allow for it? Does it need to be recognized as anything other than something that is different?
I think for some people it can feel different than just a preference. I think that's where the difference is. And like stereotyping and particularly targeting, it doesn't matter who they are, what they do, as long as they're Asian.
They're just objectified.
Like yeah, objectified, yeah. It's a little different than having a preference, I think. It can be a subtle difference, but I think people do experience that. Same thing with persons of color also experience that. So.
But I wonder, are there ever occasions when somebody might want to be the object of, we might like to be the sex object, right? It could be flattering or not. We'd have to find out individually. Getting off topic here. Are you saying more about this fetish?
Oh, just fetishism. It's attachment of erotic feelings to a non-sexual object or objects. Sexual fetishes, like all perversions, are deeply rooted in the psyche. Fetishists are almost exclusively men who eroticize easily over specific body parts, like this definition.
Right. So that's interesting.
Perversions.
Right, perversion. But it's interesting, non-sexual items, because for the holder of that fetish, they find it very sexual. So it would not be, I guess, unless they are meaning what is considered to be a sexual organ or, sexual things like breasts and genitals and ass and stuff. But it's interesting, though, and again, we'd have to look at the statistics, but that there is prevalence of men expressing their fetish more than women. And what is it about that? Are they wired that way? I mean, what is that play that would make it more prevalent in one sex over the other?
Like people who identify as men or born male.
Well, perhaps, or converted, or
I don't know. Or maybe that's just what people know or people have studied.
As you say that, now I'm wondering about the earlier idea, the coming out as poly or not mono. Are women feeling as though they are as welcome to express their fetish? Or is there some consideration that it might be unacceptable, too perverse, whatever it might be?
Yeah, no, exactly. There's probably a lot of underreporting, like many things. Okay, so that's fetishes.
Okay. That's nice.
Fellatio. I think of the song from Hair where it's sodomy, fellatio, cunnilingus.
Wow. Beautiful.
Anyways, fellatio.
And then comes fellatio.
Why don't you give the definition of that?
Stimulation of the penis with the lips, tongue, and or mouth by a partner for sexual pleasure.
Yeah, fellatio. So I was looking up before. I was like, okay, so can fellatio be performed on a woman? But I guess it's not fellatio. It's cunnilingus. So it's different. Okay. So we missed that on the C words.
Did we not mention cunnilingus?
Oh, I'm sure we mentioned it.
I would have been very surprised.
I'm sure we did. Yeah. No, but I was just curious because this definition that we saw originally had, instead of just saying by a partner, it said a male or female partner, which is interesting. Like it's like they really, some of the definitions online are not very inclusive, I'd say.
Perhaps they need to be updated.
Okay, fellatio. Fellatio's fun.
Fellatio.
I think we had a bit of fellatio last night. Also an F word. Yeah. We used fun a lot today.
Fun is fun.
Oh, now I'm remembering the one I missed. Oh no, it's at the end. Okay, fellatio. Here's my favorite one. Fly jockey. Because you were looking up some F words. Fly jockey. I love this.
And we came across this not long ago on our trip to Montreal. We went to a sex club, one that we had not been to, or maybe we had been to. But anyway.
We had been in the original location.
So what is a fly jockey, Tara?
Well, apparently it was an expression developed in the 50s and 60s, but apparently still happens today, for a man who copulates without removing his trousers through the fly of his pants, usually very quickly and riskily. So riskily is not what we were...
Riskily, if it's done like in a back alley or something, so you don't have time to let it all out. You basically just whip it out do it and then be gone with it. But where we had gone to this this club, no names mentioned, they did not have lockers or any place to store your possessions, like your clothing. So if you were not wanting to just throw your clothes in a pile, as many people were not wanting to do,
or in a hiding spot like we did,
the gentleman would simply unzip and pull out, and they were basically, essentially, completely dressed otherwise. Their counterparts usually somehow did find a way.
Yeah,
right?
somehow, the female identifying counterparts managed to have like lingerie and no other clothes on. They piled them on the beds, but the men, I just found it so interesting to see men with their pants down to their ankles and shoes on.
Oh yeah, shoes on. Well, you know, a lot of the porn back in the 70s, you'd see the guys with their black socks left on.
You still see that.
Do you?
I've seen porns where these guys standing completely naked. You know, it's usually group gangbang sort of thing, and they've got their socks on, and that's it. Like, what is that? I guess their feet get cold. I mean, who wants their feet cold? Nobody.
You'll have to check the date, because I thought after 2001 there was a law passed in porn that said you had to take off your black socks.
Maybe. But anyways, that's my job.
Note to you: if you own a club or you are having parties regularly, whatever it is, please allocate some space where people might be able to remove and hang their attire.
Oh, it's best when they have sock garters. Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, that's
that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing.
Okay, if they have sock garters, like, they could leave them on.
Yeah, definitely.
That's kind of cool.
We'll pay for that.
Sure.
Who's next?
Okay, Fly Jockey. Did we want to say anything else about that? No. You put Friend of Dorothy.
Friend of Dorothy's.
Which is a term that I learned when I met you, because I hadn't heard it.
You had not heard that before.
I hadn't heard this term before.
Do you know the origin of it or what it comes from? So
you should tell the story.
Okay, so a friend of Dorothy is a sort of subtleish way of suggesting that the person in question who is a friend of Dorothy may be homosexual. So, can we say homosexual?
I don't know.
It sounds very.
I think gay is more of a normal term.
Right.
The more
not straight. How's
not
that?
straight.
Not straight. So originally,
straight.
People in we're gonna get so
no, but straight is like, okay, what makes that straight?
It's like
heterosexual.
Versus
homosexual.
So, when people were trying to let people into AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and they were not necessarily wanting to out them in front of other people, they would say that this person was a friend of Bill's. Right? You might like this guy as a friend of Bill's, and it was Bill Wilson, one of the founders of AA. So they would be able to identify each other without necessarily outing them if they're a mixed company or whatever it was. And it was a good way of them being able to connect. So then later on, it was also thought that from the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy was a friend of Dorothy's was the indication for as they called it, a male homosexual based on the Wizard of Oz, because Dorothy, apparently Judy Garland was a major gay icon, whatever that might mean. But the quote that comes later on from, what movie was it with the Alicia Silverstone? Clueless. Alicia Silverstone. So apparently in the film, she's going on a date with some young person in question, and Alicia Silverstone's character's friend is trying to alert them to the idea that this person may be appearing strongly on the gaydar, and says to them,
"Your man Christian is a cake boy. He's a disco dancing, Oscar Wilde reading, Streisand ticket holder friend of Dorothy." Know what I'm saying?
Right.
We should have pulled that quote, that scene. That would have been good. But anyways.
Right. So now, fast forward to like today, it's often come up in conversation when we meet people organically, say we go to the beach or something.
Oh, yes.
How do I announce that I like pineapples? How do I announce that I like to mix it up a little bit, right?
Or that you're polyamorous?
Or that I'm polyamorous.
Yes.
So I thought, well, could we say that they are a friend of polyams?
Polyams. Yeah.
If you can think of a way, I'd love to hear it. But I thought it would be kind of fun because I say you're a friend of Bill, friend of Dorothy, friend of polyam.
But polyam is actually a word, so I don't know if that's. I think it would need to be. We'd have to figure out something.
Well, let's put our thinking caps on it and see if people have some ideas.
Will Smith's daughter. I don't want to use her. She just came out as polyamorous.
Oh, and we would use like it. We're a friend of hers.
Yeah.
But if it's
Willow.
a real person,
a friend of Willow.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Lots of people don't know who she is, though. She doesn't resonate with me.
No. Okay.
Okay. To go on to a totally different topic, this one was yours. Frotteurism or Frotteuristic Disorder.
Which is...
Polly is a name. Yes, that's correct.
Yes,
Friend of Polly.
Right.
I guess you could say that then. Correct.
But they might actually think that it is this person, Polly, whereas for me, the polyam...
Well, same thing as Dorothy, friend of Dorothy. That's the point. Friend of Bill. It's meant to be a name, a person's name.
True that.
Friend of Polly.
Yeah, good point.
Okay.
Frotteurism.
Right. Frotteuristic disorder. Frotteurism.
Disorder. Now,
yes.
That's interesting. Why is it considered a disorder?
Well, it's listed as one of the paraphilias in the, what's the...
DSM?
DSM, which is the...
Diagnostic
Statistic Manual.
It
is a manual of like mental health.
Exactly, right. So what it is, it's a manual
which changes often, right?
Yeah, every few years they update. At one point in the DSM, homosexuality was regarded as a mental illness. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that because we talked about that in our sex therapy class.
Yeah. In fact, where I did my training back in the day, they would not graduate you if you were homosexual or did not have children.
What?
Yeah, homosexuality, as I said, was in the DSM and considered to be a perversion that was a mental illness. And if you did not have children, they felt that you were not able to watch the maturational process firsthand, that you had to live that experience in order to really be able to identify with patients' regressed states.
But was that before you went to school there, like that institute, or when you were there? Because you don't have children, you weren't married.
You didn't mention the gay part.
And you are not, I wouldn't say you're completely...
There's a little bend in my straight.
There's a little bend in your straight, yeah.
So no, by the time I had gotten there...
Bend. Even that's a bit, I don't like that.
Get the lawyers on the phone. We're going to get so much pushback from today. Fuck it. No, they
know what we mean.
They came to their senses and realized that was idiotic and it does not qualify you to be worse or better therapist.
So paraphilia. So it's still considered, Frotteurism is still considered a paraphilia.
Right.
What's another example, just to give them an idea, other than homosexuality, which is no longer paraphilia. I'm just trying to think of one.
Making love to the dead. You got it.
Remember the name.
Necrophilia. So I think one of the criteria...
I'm just thinking about our conversation.
One of the criteria that makes it a disorder, one of the reasons why I believe is because it is non-consensual.
Okay.
So we are not advocating this, but it is of interest nonetheless.
That makes sense for Frotteurism.
Right.
So we should probably say what it is.
Right. So it goes back to what we were saying earlier about everything being somewhere on the spectrum of human sexuality. And we want to normalize that. But at the same time, there is a very strong component that it must be consensual. It must not hurt others, and it must not be denied unless they are consenting to hurt, which is a whole other thing. So that being said, yes, what does it mean to be Frotteuristic?
Yes, so I think in the simple terms is it's touching or rubbing one's genitals up against another person without consent in order to without their consent to derive sexual pleasure. So like this is like people rubbing up to you in the bus or like on the train or something like that. So
it doesn't always have to be true vacation.
No, it doesn't have to be. But they enjoy experiencing a private sexual experience in a public setting. So it's public.
That's right.
So apparently it's most commonly in shy males between the ages of 15 and 25. Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you understand perhaps how that might come about?
No, tell me.
Well, my understanding, a shy male, right? So I'm going to be a Freuder. I'm going to act Frotteuristically because I am going to rub against you without your consent, but I am doing it without getting the validation, without getting the okay from you. I might be too shy to ask you of it. I might feel as though I'm not going to receive it, all that stuff.
Okay.
So it just allows me to do it. So that's why I think where the shyness component comes from, that they've not yet psychically matured enough to put themselves out there to ask for what it is that they're wanting. So they would take about it that way. It's not to say that it's the case of all of them. There may be other people who are perfectly willing to do it, but it might be of a sexual power component to them that they are able to take it without asking for it, right? It's just being able to, dominate in that sense, right? There's a whole bunch of, you'd have to ask the individual what it is about them. but it is primarily, again, witnessed in male presenting.
Yeah, it says it's less thought to be rare among female. And it says it's also seen among older, reserved, and socially withdrawn men, maybe for the same sort of reasons.
Well, I guess if they felt as though they were able to be more effective in the past and maybe get some, they didn't have to resort to it. And now they feel perhaps frustrated or they're not able to get what they want. So then they kind of just go at it, right? For me, the most important part of that is that it's done without consent, that we are taking of the other without their ability to grant it.
Mm-hmm.
But
could it be like to go back to the Frotteurism, could it be the idea of it being arousing because it is in a public place too?
Well, there's that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, there are plenty of opportunities to exhibit outside and do exhibitions. Mm-hmm. But it's, again, the idea that it is being put upon the other person without consent.
So when you rub against me when we're somewhere in public, that's not considered Frotteurism. Because I'm aware usually. You're usually
aware and you're usually consenting. So there is always the opportunity that I might get some of that without your consent or
Exactly. And so finally, the last one is the less than fun one. No, the one we love to hate, fear.
Mm-hmm.
So fear, fear is actually one of my away from values, the thing I want to move away from the most previously.
You wanted to move away from fear.
Yeah, most people do want to move away from fear.
Why should we want to move from fear?
Well, now I'm not sure I want to move away from fear.
Well, I think if fear is limiting you in some ways, or if it's making you go into a default setting that is not the best thing for you, if it's a compromise formation that was not well thought of, then fear can be to your detriment, right?
For sure.
But there's some healthy fear too.
Yes.
Like I have a healthy fear of, let's say, electrical wires or getting too close to the flame. Those fears actually help preserve me. How perverse is that? It helps to preserve me, right? So some healthy fear. But for the most part, when we say fear in general, the big term of fear, yes, it can be rather limiting. You also have a couple of acronyms for fear, don't you?
Yes. Yes. So the negative ones, I'm going to go into the good ones after. I have positive ones too.
Positive.
Fuck everything and run. So that's fear. And then the other one I really like is false evidence appearing real. So often we have fears because there's something that we believe is going to happen. Yeah. We believe it's so real, but it's actually we're telling ourselves this because it's false evidence.
Right. We've created that.
We've created it
without much evidence.
So I think that fear is often like the big thing that gets in the way of what we want in our lives and relationships. So we often fear voicing our needs and desires, having difficult conversations that may move us forward and have great opportunity associated with them.
We might have fear. We announce something saying that we want it and are actually fearful that we might actually get it. Those fears.
That's true. We may fear getting out of a relationship or admitting that it's over and that's truly not working for us because we are afraid of being alone or something like that. We also sometimes fear the future of the relationship. We're trying to project forward to a place where it's not going to work out. So in some ways we either hold back, giving up completely of ourselves and that sort of thing.
Right. And why would we ever want to do that? You might ask, but it is as a defense, right? We are wanting to be preemptive in protecting ourselves.
So I said we have the ability to change the negative connotation of fear to mean, as we said, face our fears and talk about everything. So I wanted to share a quote that I love. I'll put it up on the screen. On the other side of our fear is our greatest growth. And I truly, truly believe this. I think if we can overcome our fear and like the stories we're telling ourselves, I think we have such great potential for growth beyond that. And so, I just wanted to share that.
Fantastic.
Don't go there yet.
Yeah, that's great advice. So fear, be willing to look at some of our fear, and in doing so, we might grow past whatever it is that was happening.
Yeah. But sometimes it's hard to get over fears, and sometimes I think we don't always realize it's our fears that are stopping us from getting what it is we want. Yeah. So in that case, if there's something you feel that you're stuck in your life in anywhere or relationship, that's when it's good to reach out to somebody who's like professional, us or somebody else who you feel comfortable with, to talk about these things and see if you can unpack like where that fear is coming from.
Yeah. Try not to let fear be the deciding factor for you, right? So much of what we say and do or resign from doing is fear-based. And when we come to that recognition, that acknowledgement of that position, we can then make an informed decision to realize it and move past it, or just enjoy the fear and live a small, miserable existence.
Is there any situations in your life where you've had a fear where you've dealt with it and then had something really amazing happen?
Yeah, actually.
Do you want to share?
Oh, do you want me to share? Yeah. Being in this relationship, quite frankly.
Oh.
Yeah. You weaseled your way into it, and I think I was. I'm glad that you did, but I was pretty much fear-based. I was afraid that it was going to be, I guess, like many of the other relationships that I'd been into, we were going to fall into that relationship escalator that we spoke about, and it was just going to go from point A to B and be kind of not so fulfilling, not so fantastic. And yet I moved past that fear and allowed myself to become connected to you, allowed you to become connected to me, and have been living the dream ever since. So thank you.
And that totally wasn't scripted. I didn't know you were going to give that answers. Thank you. That made my day.
Thank you.
It's awesome. That's that for today.
Fantastic.
Thanks always for joining. We'd love to hear your feedback. So if you love this, let us know. If you didn't like it, let us know as well. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss. Next is G. Oh, we could do GGG. There's so many good things. Oh, G-spot or G area. Okay, I'm going to write that down.
Okay, for sure.
Okay, if you have ideas, let us know. Thanks so much.
We've enjoyed this as well. Thank you so much. Yes, this has been fabulous and fantastic.
Fabulously fantastic. And have a fine day.
Yay.
Bye, everyone.
If you want to have secure, satisfying, and sexy relationships, check out our Poly Newbies digital course. It's 7 modules of all you need in one place. And as a thank you to our listeners, we're offering it at an exclusive price. Link is in the show notes, plus all the other awesome things we talked about today. Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk Polyamory podcast with TNA. Don't forget to subscribe and give us some love on your favorite podcasting platform. You can check out the show notes for any of the links to the courses or information we talked about today. Thanks, and have a fantastic and sexy day.